This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China hosts its first major in-person expo since the COVID-19 pandemic. Sudan ends 30 years of Islamic law by separating religion and state. And Russia's COVID vaccine shows potential in peer review, Lancet reports. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, and with the day's business headlines is Uche.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Vodacom South Africa in tech partnership deal with China's Alipay. And Nigerian traders in Ghana accuse local authorities of discrimination after their shops were closed. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. A major trade fair has kicked off in Beijing, and unlike the online events we've been used to in pandemic times, this one is in person. President Xi Jinping gave the opening address, saying he hopes the event could help boost international trade as the world economy suffers a major blow from the pandemic. Wu Guoshu has our top story.
President Xi Jinping proposes to jointly build a world services economy that's open, inclusive, innovative, and mutually beneficial.
China will remain steadfast in opening up wider to the world. We will continue to work on a negative list system for managing cross-border services trade. We will develop open platforms for the pilot program of innovative development of the services sector. We will further ease market access for the services sector and will take greater initiative to increase imports of quality services.
President Xi also announced China's measures to promote higher quality opening up, despite the challenges posed by COVID-19.
We will support the Beijing municipality in developing a national integrated demonstration zone for greater openness in the services sector. It will enable Beijing to take bigger, bolder steps as a trailblazer and gain more experience that would be replicable and scalable. We will also support Beijing in setting up a pilot free trade zone characterizing scientific and technological innovation, opening up of the services sector and digital economy.
Leaders addressed the summit remotely. The message is clear: support economic globalization and international cooperation.
We hope to continue to deepen relations with China. For the post-COVID recovery and development, we may consider integrating our information system and share best practices. This platform of cooperation can help boost development.
International cooperation and trade in services should be a key element of the policy agenda. We hope we can work together, building on the common lessons both China and UNCTAD can share on how services can leverage achieving the SDGs.
But still, overcoming the coronavirus pandemic is key, and world leaders renewed calls for global efforts to deal with it.
Innovation is of most value when it narrows inequalities, not widens them. This pandemic will end. The question is whether we will learn the lessons it's teaching us. Together, we must build a healthier, safer, fairer world for everyone, everywhere.
China's International Fair for Trade and Services is the world's first of its kind organized at the national level. Nearly 18,000 organizations, embassies, associations, and companies from nearly 150 countries and regions are participating. There will be online and offline events featuring public health, tourism, winter sports, and 5G communications. As a taster of what's to come, this summit will be followed by nearly 200 forums and negotiations over the next 5 days, together with a vast exhibition area. The message from the organizers is clear: join hands for global economic recovery and don't shut doors, especially in front of our common enemy, the coronavirus. Wu Guoshu, CGTN, Beijing.
China is hosting its first major in-person trade expo since the COVID-19 outbreak. President Xi Jinping opened the China International Fair for Trade and Services in Beijing today. He said the government will support the city to set up a pilot-free trade zone incorporating scientific and technological innovation in order to help further open up the services sector and boost the digital economy. He also expressed hope that the event could help strengthen international trade as the world economy suffered a huge blow due to the pandemic.
Today, with COVID-19 yet to be brought under full control at the global level, all countries face the formidable task to defeat the virus, stabilize the economy, and protect livelihoods. It is against such a backdrop that China decided to hold this important international trade event despite many difficulties in preparation. It shows China's willingness to join hands with all of you in this trying time and work together to enable global trade in services to thrive and the world economy to recover at an early date.
He also warned against trade protectionism, making 3 proposals for helping the world economy recover. He said countries should work together to foster an open and inclusive environment for cooperation. Xi reaffirmed China's commitment to ease market access in the service sector and actively expand imports. He also called on other countries to boost cooperation driven by innovation. The president said China will work with the rest of the world to better protect intellectual property rights and boost digital economy and sharing economy. Xi also called for joint efforts to break new grounds in win-win cooperation. He said the world should improve coordination, deepen innovative cooperation, and maximize common interests. Sudan's transitional government has agreed to separate religion from the state. That brings to an end 30 years of Islamic rule in the North African nation. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and Abdelaziz Al-Hilu, the leader of the faction of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North, signed a declaration in Addis Ababa on Thursday. The accord comes less than a week after the government signed a peace deal with rebel forces that's raised hopes of an end to fighting that ravaged Darfur and other parts of Sudan. To further analyze this story, we are joined by Matthias Muindi, a political risk analyst specializing in the Horn of Africa, Great Lakes and East African region. Matthias, thank you very much for joining us. So after 3 decades, Sudan now saying it's separating the state from religion. What does this mean, ending 30 years of Islamic rule?
If they go ahead with this one, this is big, because you are basically being asked to redraw the political and social setup of Sudan for the last 40 years. And it's not going to be an easy process, because when you look at Sudanese society, it has largely been centered about Islamic law, Islamic rule, in terms of how people relate in the society, in terms of how they conduct politics. So this is something which is going to be big. But we also have to add caution here. The agreement which was signed yesterday between the Prime Minister and the leader of this faction is just an interim one. They still have to go into full negotiations. And we also have to notice that this is just one rebel group in a country with dozens of rebel movements. So a positive step, but they still have a long way to go to getting this right.
But should it be effective, then what will this mean? What's going to be the impact of this on the Sudanese people?
It is going to be very major, because Islamic law is not just about the religion. It's also the way you relate in that society. And it's also how the way you conduct politics in that country. The biggest political parties in Sudan, actually the top 3 political parties, are rooted in Islamist sects. So they are not going to be amused by what has happened yesterday. The other element you could also be looking at is that Sudan has so many rebel groups. They have their own differences with the government, but they have never called for a secular system. So this is something which is going to cause a political storm in the coming days, especially when you look at its timing. It's coming almost a week after a bigger agreement was signed. Now you have this.
Mm-hmm. And how important is this decision to achieving peace in Sudan?
It is important if they get it right. If they get it right, they could be able to get out with some of the, let's say, what I call worst vestiges of Islamist rule under Bashir. On the other hand, if they get it wrong, it could sow seeds for future conflict. Bashir is being blamed for what has happened under the Islamic rule. But Bashir was not the architect. The principal architect of that was a former president called Jafar Numeri, who was overthrown. So if they get it wrong, it has the serious potential of also sowing a future conflict in the country, which is trying to emerge from one conflict.
All right, thank you very much for that, Matthias Mwindi, in studio with us. Now over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a group of armed men have entered the city of Bunia in the northeast of the country to demand the release of their detained fellow fighters. The heavily armed fighters surrounded the city's prison and held talks with local authorities. No violence was reported. CGTN's Chris Chamringa has more from Kinshasa.
About 100 militiamen surrounded a prison in the DRC's northeastern city of Bunia on Friday, causing unease in the community. The fighters are part of the Codeco militia that agreed to lay down their arms last month. They entered the city to demand the release of fighters who were arrested earlier this year for killing civilians. Congolese security forces did not put up any fight. The police fired a few shots to scare away civilians who were pelting the rebels with stones. Local officials say the militiamen agreed to return to a camp where they will be disbanded. Codeco is a notorious militia that has killed hundreds of civilians in Ituri province this year. It's composed of fighters from the Lendu ethnic group that has had a long-standing rivalry with the Hema community over land and resources. The UN says some of the atrocities committed by its fighters amount to war crimes. Chris Chamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Still in the Democratic Republic of Congo, supporters of Denis Mukwege, a Congolese Nobel laureate, have staged protests in Bukavu after he received threats to his life. The Nobel laureate was threatened after he complained of serious human rights violations by a militia in eastern DRC.
They dotted the streets of Bukavu in eastern Congo. Thousands of protesters rallying in support of Congolese Nobel laureate Denis Mukwege. Mukwege, a doctor who has helped thousands of survivors of sexual violence, has won international recognition for his role. In 2018, he was accorded the Nobel Peace Prize, among other awards. He has also been an advocate for prosecuting armed groups responsible for the endemic sexual violence in eastern Congo.
Even though those of us here in Bukavu did not experience the atrocities, our sisters in the forest got raped and ruined. Some completely lost their wombs, and some carried their wombs in their hands. Some were severely injured before they received help. They had severe infections and did not look like they would survive.
A week ago, the United Nations announced that Mukwege and his family had received death threats through social media and on phone.
Now you see, Mukwege put all the effort to resuscitate such women, gave them food and dressed them, and took care of all the expenses. We the women would not like to see our Mukwege being destroyed. We do not want to see this. They should give him peace.
To Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic, ensure and guarantee in any emergency good security to Dr. Denis Mukwege as well as to other human rights defenders engaged in the search for justice and truth for a lasting peace in Congo. Commence serious investigations to identify the perpetrators of these threats and institute legal proceedings against them while in accordance with the laws of this Congolese state.
Mukwege narrowly escaped an assassination attempt in 2012, which led to more calls for his increased protection by the government. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
In Uganda, nearly 1.2 million refugees living in settlements and who depend on relief food from the UN World Food Programme are in danger of hunger due to a funding shortfall. The WFP says it needs an additional $22.5 million to provide enough food for the refugees until the end of 2020. Isabel Nakiria reports.
Peter Arjen and his 3 brothers now receive food rations once every 2 months. Before the coronavirus pandemic in March, food used to come every month. The 4 brothers are South Sudanese refugees living in the Bidi settlement. They arrived in Uganda in 2018 without their parents after fleeing violence back home and have not heard from them since. They depend on food handouts and they say there's not enough.
They'll be giving food, the 1 sack and the 20 grams of beans. That cannot be enough.
Uganda is home to over 1.4 million refugees. Over half of these live in settlements and depend on food rations and aid for survival. The government, in partnership with refugee agencies, provides assistance to the refugees. But some 1.2 million refugees living in settlements who have been receiving assistance from the WFP are now in urgent need. The WFP says it's running out of funding and may not be able to provide the rations needed to refugee settlements like Bidi, where Peter and his brothers live.
Since March, we've cut back our rations to 70%. That was actually planned before COVID because we could see that our forecast for 2020 was already reduced, and so we had to reduce our rations. What we're looking at now is if we don't get more resources, we may have to cut even further from the 70%, even as much as 50%.
Refugees who were previously able to fend for themselves, like those in urban areas, have also been hit hard.
Many refugees living in the capital lost jobs during the extended lockdowns. They are now desperate to meet their basic needs as the cost of living in the city goes up.
Some agencies, like the Jesui Refugee Agency, have been assisting urban refugees with food and money during the pandemic. Pierre Sawasawa is one of those who benefited, but he says the food ran out fast.
It took only 2 weeks in the house, and the rest of the weeks it was just struggling again. Yes, as usual, because refugees are many. Someone can't go back to ask for more. Yes, because even others have to get.
The WFP is looking at developing self-sustaining means for the refugees.
So we're really looking at, with our partners, what kind of livelihood programs we can put in place. We're looking at increasing access to markets as well, because even if they have commodities, or they're growing things, how can they really be attracted to markets?
The UN is urging governments to include displaced populations in their COVID-19 response plans to ensure they are able to get support. For now, Peter and his brothers are desperate for food, and unless the situation changes, the four brothers may go hungry. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
It's coming up to 18 minutes into the hour. We're taking our first break. Coming up. Russia's COVID vaccine shows potential in peer review, Lancet reports. And Africa CDC says increasing pharmaceutical capacity will strengthen continent's health systems.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
World's independent medical journal, The Lancet, has published that Russia's proposed COVID-19 vaccine has produced an antibody response to the coronavirus. All participants in the phase 1 and 2 trials also experienced no serious side effects. This is the first vetted data on the controversial project. Russian officials had previously made broadly similar statements about the shot prior to review by outside experts. Moscow now says the publication marks a turning point in the project, which has attracted wide criticism. The trials took place in 2 Russian hospitals and involved 76 healthy adults aged 18 to 60. All participants were given the vaccine and there was no placebo group, one of several limitations to the trials that were cited in the report. CGTN's Julia Chapman joins us live from Moscow with an update on the vaccine. Julia, a study published in the peer-reviewed medical journal The Lancet revealed that trials of Russia's potential coronavirus vaccine show no major negative side effects. What more can you tell us about the vaccine and the study?
Well, we know that 76 healthy adults received a dose of the Sputnik V vaccine, Russia's frontrunner for the vaccine race against COVID-19, and they were split into two groups of 38, and the second group received 2 doses, and that is what these developers are proposing, that there will be 2 doses given 3 weeks apart to create the maximum immunity, which they say could last to more than 2 years. So huge results from these trials. There had been no data published until today. It's a very significant moment. But of course, as you mentioned, there have been no randomized trials yet. There's been no comparison with a placebo to compare the immunity given by this vaccine. And only 76 people have received a dose of this. So it's still a relatively small pool of data, but certainly very promising preliminary results.
Western countries, Julia, have been skeptical about the vaccine's effectiveness. How important is the publication to the project?
It's very significant. It's a huge vindication on the part of the Russians who have been developing and promoting this vaccine for the last month after it was registered here in Russia by regulators and approved as early as August 11th. But that was before the clinical trials had even finished. So there was a lot of criticism that it was simply too early to be registering this vaccine. They said, the critics said it wasn't proven to be safe or effective. The developers defended it. And now this data will certainly go some way to allaying the criticisms that arose last month. Nevertheless, there's still a long way to go. The trials are only in phase 3 now. They only just got underway last week. The WHO now acknowledges that that phase has been reached. Last month it hadn't reached that phase, and so now this is the next step that will come in the road to finding this vaccine.
All right, Julia, thank you for that update. Julia Chapman live for us in Moscow. Now, the Africa Centers for Disease Control says countries on the continent need to manufacture their own medical supplies if they are to successfully tackle the coronavirus pandemic. African countries have struggled to source enough medical kits, which are largely imported from overseas. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi has the details from Addis Ababa.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced many African countries to urgently seek medical equipment from abroad. But global competition for the same items caused massive delays in their importation. And that is why the Africa CDC is calling for increased local manufacturing of medical supplies.
We are learning that from the COVID-19 that just basic personal protective equipment like the gloves, the masks, are things that challenge us very significantly at the start of this pandemic. It is what our public health workers, the frontline workers, require in any outbreak to protect themselves. And as such, we have to be very deliberate that we have that, we manufacture that.
Diagnostic testing kits are among the medical supplies that are most difficult to source.
We just didn't have the reagents for COVID-19. So it is a call to action for us that as a continent, we have to deliberately invest in local manufacturing for diagnostics at the continent.
Senegal, the continent's only producer of the yellow fever vaccine, is currently working on a COVID-19 home testing kit that could cost as little as $1. It says increased manufacturing of vaccines is possible too.
The science should be the basis of all what we're doing. And right now, COVID is an extraordinary opportunity to not only build capacities locally, but to make them put together an ecosystem that would be helpful for other diseases that we are fighting every day.
The UN says Africa manufactures less than 2% of the medicines it consumes and nets less than 1% of the global health expenditure. Statistics from the UN Economic Commission for Africa shows that pharmaceutical spending in Africa reached $18 billion in 2012, and this was expected to increase to $45 billion by this year, 2020. Overall, 37% of African countries are involved in pharmaceutical production, but they mainly rely on imported drugs. The African Union Continental Free Trade Area says regional manufacturing hubs should be the focus for now to enable diversification of production and avoid duplication. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The Ugandan government has reversed its earlier decision to conduct free COVID-19 tests for truck drivers at its border points. The new development has caused a traffic snarl-up at the border points, with one queue leading to the Busia Customs clearance post stretching over 20 kilometers inside Kenya as drivers await clearance. CGTN's Nick Mudimba is in Busia and now brings us the latest.
I'm right here at the Busia one-stop border post, and things are not as usual. As you can see, traffic snarl-up from truck drivers has gone all the way to 40 kilometers on the Kenyan side. Reason still not clear, but so many residents from Busia town are saying that their reagents is a problem. But again, drivers from the Kenyan side are told that they will be actually have to pay $65 for them to be tested, and on the other side of the Kenyan side, of course, they have been tested for free.
Kule Uganda wameanza kuitisha pesa.
In Uganda, they have started asking for money. Drivers coming from the Uganda side are testing in Kenya, but for us lining up to enter Uganda, we are charged to test when we go in. So the queue will still be longer because the trucks are still coming and the doctors are testing very few.
We don't have peace. We're afraid in our town. They should have taken these trucks outside town.
Behind me are trucks that have gone all the way 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers in the Kenyan side. And the drivers are crying for that they've had to spend so much money just being here for the last 2 months, all in the name of being tested twice. The Kenyan side, they're tested for free, but the Ugandan side, it's a bit hectic because now they have to part, as I said earlier, with the $65. Now, many of them have to actually seek shelter from the neighboring houses, have to actually shower from the neighboring houses also, and food has been a problem. And the residents here have been so courteous and helped them with food in this situation. The families, according to many drivers, are saying that they're worried about the well-being, the fact that also they've been on the road for close to 2 months. For CGTN, I'm Nick Mudimba at the Busia, Uganda border.
To Nigeria now, where those who miss the thrill of air travel are getting a taste of it, but in a different way during the coronavirus lockdown. A restaurant in Abuja is now offering its customers the illusion of flying without having to leave the ground. CGTN's Joy Kiruki has the details.
The Urban Air Restaurant in Nigeria's capital, Abuja.
On behalf of myself, my co-pilot, and make use of your cell phones.
It is themed like an airplane in mid-flight, a simulated setting for air travelers who have been grounded by COVID-19, a place they can relive memories.
The environment is really amazing considering, this corona stuff, so it's been a while since we all got to see inside of an airplane, and this just reminds us of that, and the food is amazing.
It's a brainchild of restaurant owner Ugo Young, who opened it to the public on August 15th.
Your regular restaurant, but it was built like an airplane. So we have airplane features and one or two beautiful things that just makes you feel as though you're in an aircraft. Especially during this period, this COVID period, where people haven't gotten to travel, so they could come here and feel as though they're in the air.
According to Young, the eatery provides a safe and affordable experience for nostalgic flyers.
Customers have been extremely happy when they come here because they get a brand new experience. From time to time, we even announce on the PA system, just as the captains do. So I basically operate here as a captain of the aircraft.
It's actually good. It's more, it looks like a private jet here. Like I'm actually on a private jet. And even though, some people really want to be there, so they can actually come here and be like, oh, you guys, I'm on a private jet and people actually believe because everything says it.
A timely business opportunity after the government suspended all domestic and international commercial flights in March. Domestic flights have since resumed, with international flights set to resume on September 5th. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Time now to catch up with the day's business news, and Uche joins us with the latest.
Thanks, Peninah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Vodacom South Africa in tech partnership deal with China's Alipay. And Nigerian traders in Ghana accuse local authorities of discrimination after their shops were closed.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. And let's start with some company news. Vodacom South Africa has announced a groundbreaking tech partnership with China's Alipay, which is, of course, the world's leading digital daily lifestyle service platform. Now, the joint venture will provide inclusive mobile solutions to South African consumers and merchants, especially small businesses, through innovative digital technologies. Here's CGTN Sumitra Naidu with more from Johannesburg.
From ordering takeaways, booking an e-hailing service to streaming music, it's a one-stop shop in the palm of your hand.
Essentially what would be is a single platform for buyers and sellers to come together with the underlying technology that would assist in making those transactions seamless. I think Vodacom is trying to achieve something unique and different and outside the traditional telco space. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for them, considering that people have gotten used to the fact that I can buy things online.
Vodacom is not new in this space. 4 years ago, they pulled the plug on M-Pesa in South Africa.
With M-Pesa, they didn't have the critical mass to make that work or make it feasible for Vodacom. So again, I think if you're looking at where we are in the current economy, if you're looking at where we are with the global pandemic, it does give a very good opportunity for people being used to the fact that they can use technology to purchase things. So I think the scene is set a little bit differently to the previous time. And also, I think the technology that they're proposing now and the partnerships they've made makes a very big difference.
Alipay has a long history of success in various countries across the globe. More than 1.2 billion consumers have used the platform to date.
Alipay is essentially an e-wallet, but it does allow you to essentially make purchases by using your phone instead of a traditional card. I think if you're looking at the technology in this space, the company that they've partnered with would be ahead of the technology curve. They've spent a lot of time and energy into this, and I think there wouldn't be a better partnership for Vodacom to make if they want to get to market as quickly as possible.
The mobile payment platform will potentially provide disserviced small and medium enterprises access to financial services solutions, not only for their customers, but their suppliers too.
They don't have to go draw money, or they don't have to tap on a device that they're not certain about. If there can be a trusted app where I can go and just make my payment from the app, and I trust that I will go to any vendor that allows me to purchase using that method.
Not only will you have the ability to easily and affordably transact, you'll also be able to track your monthly spend with your favorite retailer, restaurant, or with people. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, Nigerian traders in Ghana have accused local authorities of discrimination after their shops were closed in the capital, Accra. They say it is all part of a trade war in the region that has seen foreign businessmen fighting for control over local retail with native Ghanaians since 2019. Now, speakers of the Ghanaian Parliament and Nigerian House of Representatives have been in discussions in Accra over the same issue.
The Ghana Union of Traders Association has been pushing for the application of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center laws, which prohibit foreigners from becoming involved in retail trade and only allowing Ghanaians. This has led to the closure of foreign-owned retail shops, with several hundred Nigerian-owned stores being affected.
We have family here. We pay our taxes here. We pay house rent. We take care of our family. Okay, now the shop has lost. How would they expect us to take care of our responsibility? How would they want us to take care of ourselves? But I see it's just a hatred. They just set out with passion. I don't know what is the problem. What have we done to them? The problem we have here is only we are Nigerian. Other foreigners are here doing their business.
Traders suffered after the pandemic hit, deepening the economic crisis in the region, and the restrictions being imposed by Ghana authorities leaves the traders in an even more difficult situation.
Since December last year, 2019, and pandemic, coronavirus issue, you see how everything is, and we are not doing business. You see, and we have our parents here, some is in Nigeria that will support small. And you see, it's very hard. It's very hard, seriously.
The Ghanaian trade authorities have told Nigerian traders that ECOWAS nationals will not be affected by the $1 million threshold mandated by the GIPC law for non-citizens who want to invest in Ghana. But groups feel the statement by local authorities is not enough.
It's a shame to Africa fighting among ourselves. It's quite a shame. How can people from other regions take us seriously when we have rules we cannot obey it, when we have protocol we cannot follow it? How can we relate with other people outside this bloc? They will not take us seriously.
The fight over retail commerce that some may consider a minor issue could have greater regional implications.
So if we're doing a regional bloc, you have countries having trade disputes or trade misunderstanding, what have you, barriers and issues. Then, of course, there's a need to, as I said earlier, you need to work on every minor issue, because continental free trade is about volumes of export. And so if at the end of the day, Nigeria is not a member state yet, it's ratified. Okay, they are now building, they are taking into consideration every bit of some of these issues before they ratify.
Last week, the Nigerian government issued a statement saying it has been registering acts of hostility towards Nigeria and Nigerians by Ghanaian authorities, adding that it will not tolerate such treatment of its citizens. The Ghanaian government has denied the allegations. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Now, Ethiopia is planning to generate $400 million in export revenue from its industrial parks in the next fiscal year. The plan also aims to create employment opportunities for thousands of its citizens in sectors such as textile and apparels, footwear and other leather products. From Addis Ababa, here's CGTN's Gerum Chala with that report.
Ethiopia's industrial parks development plan of generating more revenue is gathering steam, with the state aiming to collect more than double of the revenue earned in the previous year. And so if all goes to plan, up to $400 million is expected to be collected from exports of industrial outputs next year. Last year, Ethiopia's industrial parks brought home $165 million revenue from export sales of different outputs, including textile and garments. Ethiopia's industrial parks house mostly light industry operators who mainly are foreign investors. But now the new plan seeks to invite at least 36 local developers to invest in industrial parks located across the country. That is a move hoped to motivate local investors and create more opportunities for indigenous industry. Similarly, while increasing the much needed income, Ethiopia's Industrial Parks Development Corporation is aiming to create 45,000 new jobs for citizens within the next year. According to government authorities, providing as many jobs as possible to locals is one of the initial goals of industrial parks development here in Ethiopia. And that plan seems to be working well, as there are thousands of people who earn their livelihoods from the state-of-the-art industry locations in the country. Group Data CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Well, let's shift focus now. An electric-powered speedboat, which claims to do away with seasickness by flying above the waves on hydrofoils, has now made its debut on a Swiss lake. Now, the Candela 7 is the world's first hydrofoiling electric-powered production boat and can hit speeds of 55 kilometers per hour when its foils lift it out of the water. Now, the foils massively reduce water friction and the effect of waves slamming into the boat, cutting energy consumption by 80% compared to normal boats and extending the craft's range to 90 kilometers. The carbon fiber boat also carries an onboard computer which automatically adjusts the foil positions about 100 times per second to prevent rolling and seasickness.
Yeah, of course, I mean, it has a big impact, to be honest. It's not a combustion gasoline engine or diesel engine, it's just pure electric. And the consumption is 15. It's just 50% per nautical miles comparing to a combustion engine. And that boat is with a range of 90 kilometers with one battery charge. 90 kilometers is a lot, so you really can cross the lake, have some nice days out and fun, lying in the sun, going to a restaurant and going home back. So to charge the boat is a normal 230 volt, as we have everywhere in our households or on the moorings, and it charges overnight. So and then the next day you still have again 90 kilometers in distance.
Meanwhile, the deadline set by the U.S. President Donald Trump for the sale of video app TikTok is fast approaching. And American TikTok stars who make a living from branding deals through the platform now face growing uncertainty. Here's Eddie's Tianshan reporting.
Teenagers from across the country are flocking to Hollywood to become a part of a growing social media industry. Some with millions of followers, they are TikTok stars who have their own talent agents.
So 6 Degrees of Influence wanted to put together an influencer content collective of a bunch of different types of influencers at different points within their careers doing different types of content with a lot of TikTok-facing talent. And what we did was we spent months casting those parts for the house. We wanted to have a real diverse group of content creators, different ages, different content from different backgrounds.
They live together. Some are in a relationship. Many are already close friends. Every day, they're bouncing ideas off each other, hoping to come up with the next viral video.
We're in a relationship, me and Ray, and we bounce off back and forth with our content, and it's been helping us grow together. People love seeing us together. Our fans, that's what they love to see. So we'll do videos on the Vault account of me and her doing something or doing a trend or a dance.
Growing as a group is the ultimate goal, but it's unclear what could happen to the very platform they're invested in.
A lot of my followers are only on TikTok because they don't have other platforms. So it's kind of scary to lose followers. Also brand deals as well, because we rely on like song promos, getting paid for that, and it's just like how we make a living, really.
In fact, some are already hitting the jackpot as teenagers.
I bought my mom a house last year, actually. I have my business account, my personal accounts, and my savings, so almost everything that I get, 20% of it, I put up, no matter how small or how big of a deal it is, just for like a rainy day, because I feel like it's good to just have. And like me being 18, being able to support myself and also support my family, like that's definitely just been the goal, so I'm definitely grateful for that.
The uncertainty around TikTok's future in the United States hasn't stopped influencers from staying active on the app, but many are preparing for the worst case.
It's definitely forcing me to branch out and make sure I'm putting as many people onto my other platforms as possible, just in case any of my platforms, fall off or get banned or whatever it is, especially TikTok, making sure all those TikTok followers know I'm over on Instagram, over on Snapchat, Twitter, whatever it is. So even if TikTok dies, I still have that platform elsewhere.
They're aspiring to become models, musicians, or even Hollywood actors. Popularity on social media is their common goal, and maintaining their fan base on their favorite platform is now a common struggle. It is Tianshan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
Well, that is all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, Nigerian and Ghanaian traders have been fighting to conduct retail businesses in each other's nations. This, of course, has led to a meeting of speakers from each country. But is there a solution in the offing? We'll bring you more on that at top of the hour. For now, back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live. Plenty more coming up, including this. In our continuing CGTN Digital Safari series, we'll look at how Lalamba, the leopard, hunts her prey at the Mara River.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
to bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
And now to a story of hope in Kenya, that of John Ngumo, whose arm was amputated in 2012. At that point, he thought it was the end of his dreams in earning a livelihood. But the man, who hails from Nyeri County in central Kenya, has beaten the odds to become a respected construction worker. His attention to detail and finesse has impressed many people. CGTN's Nick Mudimba brings us his story.
Construction work is tough and energy-consuming. One needs physical strength to do it well. Meet 38-year-old John Ngumo. His arm was amputated following an accident. But his physical condition hasn't deterred him from working in this sector. His precision and concentration tells it all. Here he joins other workers constructing a pigsty.
I lost my arm when I was preparing silage. A shaft cutter cut off my arm. I stayed jobless for several months and I pitied myself. But I had to wake up from my slumber to feed my wife. I started teaching myself construction work and I started off with a spade. And that is how I got myself working in the construction industry.
At one point, his life seemed shattered. But his determination pushed him on. He later gained the trust of many employers by performing better than some of his more able-bodied colleagues. Just as he was picking up the pieces, he suffered another setback.
My wife saw my desperate lifestyle and dumped me. She left with a child. At times she still calls me though, but now I hear she got married again.
His employer was skeptical when he first met him and hardly imagined he could become one of his best workers.
The following week, the first time I had a building project at my hotel, I needed 4 strong men. They came and said what I gave them was too much work, but John stayed, put up with 2 other boys. The house he helped build, I could not believe it was him. Insurance compensated him around 3,000 USD. The money got finished and his wife took off with the kid. John is now a societal mirror and a good example showing the able-bodied men out here to stop begging.
He only remembers he has no arm when he looks at his body. He remains an optimist and a go-getter.
I can tell the able-bodied men out here to work hard. No one will help you. Motivate yourself and work.
Despite the challenges he faced, John soldiered on by working hard and never giving up. He's now among the most sought-after workers in his own area. John's story is a story of resilience. As much as saying that goes, disability is not inability, the mindset propels you to the next level. He's gone through all that, but as you can see, he's defying all the odds to be the man he needs to be in society. Nick Mudimba, CGTN, Nyeri County, Kenya.
In our continuing CGTN Digital Safari series, we detail the adventure of leopard princess Lalamba as she trains her eyes on her prey.
Yesterday on CGTN's Digital Safari. In the Masai Mara, the zebra, topi and wildebeest were gathered on the sides of the river. However, the chill of the morning breeze kept our migratory animals agitated, with some rather participating in tag and racing games. The echo of their hooves carried across the plains, and the crocs were waiting in anticipation. On the horizon, a courtship of Maasai ostriches was on show. We watched as their wings flapped and heads bobbed in the breeze. It was a fascinating addition to our digital safari. Meanwhile, down south, most of the animals use the morning winds to their advantage. In Juma,
Tlalamba, the leopard princess, stalked unnoticed through the high grasses of the territory marked out for her by her mother, eventually finding a well-hidden spot to stake out her next kill. In Pinda, the vultures sat high up with their beaks at the ready to catch any smells of prey wafting in the breeze. Further in the long grasslands was a herd of African buffalo grazing, with one of the females shedding her fur, getting ready for the warm weather to follow. On the other side of Pinda, the lions used the wind to mask their movements as they laid in wait at the waterhole. At Ngala, after a long game of wait and tease, the mating rituals with these big cats reignited. Join us every day at 4:30 GMT on CGTN digital platforms for your very own virtual safari through the African wild.